Sound of that parade today, colorful sounds from the military brass instrument, and of course some of the drums that led to some dancing of ethnic and cultural display.
Autonomous nations, sovereign states of agriculture, and babies in the formation of those resilient nations.
That was how it went down today earlier when there was a rich display of dancing and celebration at the presidential villa here in Abuja. And of course, we also saw the military in their parade tonight. I have a great lineup of discussants, erudite scholars and illustrious citizens and all elder statesmen and women on the program tonight. Within these 2 hours or so, we'll be taking this journey to looking at Nigeria from pre-independence, independence, and now looking forward to the future. What does that hold? We have a mixed blend of this discussion tonight that you will appreciate and learn one thing or the other. We can have this conversation and get on our social media platform, on Twitter, and every of what you have so that we can get talking. Let's get to look at what really happened pre-independence. From 1953, 1956, 57, there was this debate about Nigeria's independence, the yearning from the forefathers of Nigeria looking towards the future. They were having one common agenda, and this agenda listed here. These are some of the arguments in the motion moved at that time in Parliament, then in Lagos, where they sat. And these are some of the issues they raised: self-determination, end to colonialism, economic control. They wanted to have it and have Nigeria take charge of its own destiny, economically speaking. Yeah, that's one of those issues: cultural identity, political freedom, national unity, international standing as a nation that has its own sovereign identity, and educational opportunities, because there was some kind of disparity. For those who are very much around at the time, even the civil service, you see there was a lot of disparity. It was not an even balance. So Nigeria wanted an educational opportunity for all its citizens. Let's take a look at some of the other issues that are prop up in our 63-year journey. It's not an easy one. From the First Republic, Nigeria getting independence, Sir Tafawa Balewa was a prime minister, a parliamentary system of government was in place, and afterward, there was some kind of ethnic tensions, not easy to put together that diversity of people. Regional disparity grew during this period from 1960 to 1966, which saw the very First Republic in Nigeria. From 1966, there was a very, very interesting event in the country, and it was a forced military coup in Nigeria. Now, that military coup started what we now saw as incessant military coup. A group of military officers staged a coup leading to political instability, and a lot of people lost their lives in that coup. Leaders lost their life. Prime Minister Tafawa Balewa was one of those who were lost at that time. It was a sad moment in our history. The military took charge. They had their own reasons. And down the line, we saw all of this play out. This is another moment in Nigeria's 63-year journey that a lot of people will remember. The Nigerian Civil War For 3 years, the nation was engulfed in this civil war as the southeastern region seated as Biafra. There was the agitation. Some military officers within the military were of the southeastern extraction wanted what they called the Biafra nation, and there was a secession move from them. The war ended in 1970 with significant loss of life on both sides of the divide at that time. And at the end of the day, General Gowan was the leader, military leader in the country. No victor, no vanquish. A lot of things came up, including NYC, two United Nations, Second Republic in 1978-9, but it ended in 1983. But that man was elected for the first term, and he was re-elected again. Don't forget, there are a lot of issues that came up with that re-election, which is not a conversation for today. Shehu Shagari became the president in the Second Republic. But in 1983, the military came back into the scene, and that ended the Second Republic. And of course, economic difficulties and corruption persisted. One of the major reasons for the military coming back into the fray, and they came back into power. And of course, that man, General Muhammadu Buhari, at the time led the coup and returning the country to military rule. And that went on, and we saw different military coups afterwards. He was also ousted and out of office, and efforts to combat corruption were initiated. A lot of people got a long years of jail time. That went on, and of course, leading us to long years of military coup in Nigeria and military, the run of the men in the military uniform running the affairs of this nation. And of course, there was another try for a third republic, which didn't happen. Of course, that there were those who were elected into the parliament at the time, but it was short-lived. And of course, the President Bola Tinubu was one of those who became members of the National Assembly at the time. Don't forget, Moshood Kashimawo Abiola was elected in one of the elections touted as perhaps the freest and fairest election in Nigeria's history, a third republic that never had swear. And of course, until the Fourth Republic in 1999, when the military packed their stuff and left the scene of political dominance in Nigeria. 1999, up until this moment, we had 24 years of civil rule in Nigeria, the Fourth Republic. And in 2015, for the first time, an opposition party coming together after a year of formation and takers of the transition of an had military civilian rule in Nigeria. And of course, the 2015 marked yet another handing over from one civilian rule to the other. Nigeria operated a federal republic with regular election. Challenges include corruption, security threats, economic upheaval, and a lot of ethnic tensions in Nigeria. New challenges and new problems emerge in the nation. Of course, the Third Republic, like I mentioned earlier, which saw Moshood Kashimawo Abiola. That election led us to recognizing the June 12 as Nigeria's new democracy day, since we'll be celebrating under President Muhammadu Buhari. But a lot of issues have also cropped up, and you imagine what really was happening then in 1960. Let me give you an understanding of how things are being from 1960 on up to present. What have we seen? What is the state of the nation? 1960, Nigeria was operating a parliamentary system of government. Of course, this is the cycle of how things have gone, a snapshot of the journey so far. It's been quite a journey. For those who are 60 years and above, we understand how tough and how difficult things have been. But we are here today as a people, still standing, a nation that is still looking forward, hopeful of a brighter day ahead. And we are believing that our nation will achieve its destiny. But let me give you an understanding of how things have been in 1960 and now, the status of our nation. Of course, in 1960 was a parliamentary system of government that we operated. Now we are operating a federal system of government. At that time, the economy was largely agrarian. But now what do we have? It was a largely oil-based economy that we are operating. At that time, the population was just about 45 million people when Nigeria got independent. But now we have over 200 million people in Nigeria. A lot has changed in this 63 years journey. And again, what I can tell you about the state of the nation at the moment is what we are seeing over the past years. And of course, it is the fact that Nigeria has had a mixture of civilian rule and military rule. For example, we've had about 29 years out of the 63 years under military rule, and we've had 34 years of civilian rule. That has been Nigeria's story for 63 years. Difficult to explain for those who are not familiar with our history, but then it's a recollection for those who are very much in tune with what has happened over these 63 years. But then, tonight, of course, we'll be looking to so many things. 29 years of military rule, 34 years of civilian rule. If you put all of those together from the First to the Fourth Republic and put those numbers together, we'll give you the 63 years journey that we've had as a people. Tonight, I told you, I have eminent Nigerians that will be giving us a sense of what these are being. But we start the conversation, of course, tonight with what happened today. The nation woke up early. For those who went to church and to their praying centers, before they went there, they were able to listen to the president, Bola Tinubu, who addressed the nation and gave some policy decision announcement that will mean some very drastic economic changes in the country. For example, wages of workers. We understand also that labor leaders are presently meeting with the federal government and the presidential villa, hoping to avert a looming labor strike that will have been announced for Tuesday this week, just after the public holiday. But let's begin the conversation, everyone. And let me introduce you to my guest tonight on the special edition of the program celebrating and commemorating Nigeria's 63rd anniversary, independence anniversary. I have joining us, of course, from Kaduna virtually. He's an elder statesman, a scholar, and political activist, a former federal lawmaker, Dr. Usman Bugaje. Thank you so much, Dr. Bugaje, for joining us tonight. Appreciate it, and happy independence to you.
My pleasure, Shewun.
Thank you so much. And of course, we have another elder statesman who is sitting right there in Owerri for us. He's the President General of the Ohanaeze Ndigbo, Chief Emmanuel Nwanyawu. Thank you so much, Chief Nwanyawu, for joining us, and I appreciate your time on this very important day for our nation. Thank you so much indeed, and happy independence. And of course, from Abeokuta, also virtually, joining us is a professor of law and erudite scholar, Professor Ademola Abbas. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Shem, for having me.
In the mix tonight is a woman of character and of prominence when we talk about entrepreneurship and development of our social space. We'll be joined by Toyosi Akerele Ogunshiji. Of course, later on, we'll be joined by a former governor of Ekiti State, Dr. Kayode Fayemi. That is our lineup tonight. I'd like my guests to weigh in on what the president said and the things that he did not say. We'll be analyzing the president's statement and the address of the president first and foremost. Let me allow you to listen to what the president said in respect of the workers' wages. And these are the issues that he raised.
Based upon our talks with labor, business, and other stakeholders, we are introducing a provisional wage award increment to enhance the federal minimum wage without causing undue inflation. For the next 6 months, the average low-grade worker shall receive an additional 25,000 naira per month.
That was not the only thing that the president said today. There were other issues that the president raised on the issue of fuel subsidy removal. There are still issues that are lingering, and this was the take of the president. He's on that.
At my inauguration, I made important promises about how I would govern this nation. Among those promises were pledges to reshape and modernize our economy and to secure the lives, liberty, and property of the people. I said that bold reforms were necessary to place our nation on the path of prosperity and growth. On that occasion, I announced the end of the fuel subsidy. I am attuned to the hardship that have come. I have a heart that feels and eyes that see. I wish to explain to you why we must endure this trying moment.
And of course, from that, the president also mentioned the issue of the CNG, the transportation issues, some of the factors that are brought into the post-subsidy removal regime in Nigeria.
Making the economy more robust by lowering transport costs shall be key. In this regard, we have opened a new chapter in public transportation through the development of cheaper, safer, compressed natural gas, CNG, buses across the nation. These buses will operate at a fraction of current fuel prices, positively affecting transport fare. The new CNG conversion kits will start coming in very soon, as all hands are on deck to fast-track the usual lengthy procurement process.
Also, the president touched on the issues of security, which is a very touchy one.
My administration shall always accord the highest priority to the safety of the people, inter-service collaboration, and intelligence sharing have been enhanced. Our service chiefs have been tasked with the vital responsibility of rebuilding the capacity of our security services.
Well then, those are excerpts from what the president, about 15 minutes in his Independence Day address to commemorate the Nigeria's 63rd independence anniversary. Before we get into the journey of Nigeria and where we are, looking forward to how Nigeria can empower the present generation for tomorrow and setting a new agenda for a new vision for our nation, and getting our guests to discuss this. Let me get their views briefly on what the president said. And let me begin the conversation with Dr. Usman Bugaji. Give us an understanding, a summarized version of your view of the president's address today. What do you make of it? What are those missing? What are the things that you identified as crucial that he mentioned?
Much, Shewon, I do appreciate every president that independence will make a speech, and we have seen a number of speeches in the last so many years. We now gotten to a point where speeches, and we are waiting to see if the political will is there to walk the talk, as it were. I would have said that he would have prioritized security, because in the hierarchy of human needs, human life comes first. And therefore, I had expected that he will take measures beyond what almost every president has said about sharing intelligence, coordination, and a lot of these things. I have not seen anything new really in what the president said in terms of security. And it would it may be early to judge these efforts, but you can see the recent abduction of female students, from one of the federal universities, the one in Zamfara in particular. It's a pattern that has been there, that intelligence was collected. This intelligence was passed to the government for all that I knew, and yet nothing was done until the event actually took place. Later on, we understand that there were 5 such attempts recently, Actually, all these attempts succeeded in breaking in and getting into the university. Now, all this should have really meant that more measures would have been taken. So, yes, it's good to know that there are all these things in the pipeline, but we can no longer be impressed by speeches, especially those of us who have seen so many of such speeches. We would rather wait and see how much of that speech is going to be implemented. But like I said, I would have wished that he prioritized security, and I was expecting that he was going to come with something new. Most of what he has said is what most of the presidents have said. Every year, the same statement are made, and yet nothing has changed. If anything, things are getting worse. Therefore, I'm really worried that it doesn't appear that we think through these problems. Look at the fuel subsidy. Since the announcement, nothing has drastically changed. People are suffering. What savings people have is being exhausted. What assets people have are being sold off, to buy food. But if you remember very well, we have a big challenge of food security. And I would have expected that he would address the issue of food security. I know that previous administrations and this particular APC government had done a paper, a policy on the food system. And this is something we have read, we have known. I have not seen any reference to it. And I thought this is the kind of way you build on the experiences or even the failures of your previous governments. So it doesn't appear that we are learning much. It doesn't appear that we have thought through a lot of these problems. We are still waiting to see how much of what has been said is actually going to come into practice.
So for you, you don't think that the president's Independence Day speech was any inspirational?
I'm afraid, Sean, I've seen quite a number of these speeches. I have had occasion to write some myself when I was in government. And I haven't seen anything new, I must admit. But that is not to say things will not happen. We still need to wait and see how much of what has been said is going to be put into practice. But I'm really worried about the issue of security. Like I said, in the hierarchy of human needs, human life comes first. And I expect that to top the speech, to top the agenda. And I expected that he would come with some drastic changes. I mean, sharing intelligence, for how long have we been sharing intelligence? What has actually happened? And like I said, under his own watch, this thing in Zamfara took place. What measures were taken? And I knew there was such intelligence, and I knew this intelligence was shared. And when some delegations went to check on what actually happened, like I said, there were 5 attempts, and all this should have been reported. And the intelligence community should have known this. What measures were taken? I'm afraid, really, we have to wait and see. But I have to say that I have not found anything inspiring in that speech.
Chief Iwanyanwu, let me come to you. For you, what do you make of President Tinubu's Independence Day speech?
Thank you very much. I want to thank the rest of the channels. Into the speech of our president and my friend Tinubu, frankly speaking, I think the speech was short, so he couldn't go into details. Because you see, things are bad. Things are very bad in the country. Things were bad even before he took over. Nobody can blame Tinubu for the problem. The problems were there. And in fact, from the first day he took over, he identified them. But what worries me today is the type of hardship, type of difficulty we are having. Take, for example, by labor to go on strike into that matter is very, very serious. And I'm aware there have been stories about in a court order. The truth is that the workers are hungry. Everybody knows earning the type of salary like 30,000 naira per month cannot survive, cannot pay transport, cannot feed the family. So indeed, the chairman of the president of NLC is in trouble. He is in trouble don't think he's making any boast or anything. I think he's just in difficulty and in trouble. And it's good for us to have sympathy. I thought some efforts have been made to talk about how this problem, very serious problem. Take for example, this exchange rate. Exchange rate problem have been identified since in the 80s, after 1980 or so. We started having this, and it is clear to us what is causing it. And I believe that most of the problem we have to solve by this to stabilize Naira in the exchange control. At a point, Naira was even stronger than dollar. It is sad to see that Naira had depreciated over 1,000% within a period. I don't know if any currency in the world ever had this. Much more a country like Nigeria, enormous resources in terms of human beings and material. We have no reason whatsoever to that point. So we feel there is a problem because there is nothing much one can do. Even the speech promised to defy income, it was not clear who would get it and from what time. But even if it is going to be paid immediately, even if it's going to be paid to everybody, it's not even clear that it can solve the problem we are facing. And of course, the problem, even if you pay palliative, it doesn't solve the problem. I think the most important thing is to see what we can do. One, to stop this strike. Everything must be done to stop this strike because this strike is allowed to go on. It's a very big chaos. So I think it's not just all of us do ourselves to reach the level, the element who Italy is one of my children from Southeast. I'll try, but to tell him, like, you must tell him what steps were taken. We say told that revenue we're earning in Nigeria will be used in servicing debts. Government, after this studying the situation in the country these 4 months, have told very stories about this economic situation. If the whole revenue we're getting will be only sufficient to service debt, so maybe 10% for every, and you can see the amount of problem we're having. How to get the money? That is why I think really there is need for everybody to come. This institution is no more to be left. This is an emergency. The country is a very critical position. To say, look, Tinubu, give it to them, all of us must work together to see how we can save the country from this situation. You know, there are many people whose children are studying overseas. Some of them are people who have money. Based on the salary they are earning, they buy dollar or foreign children's school fees. Today, millions of Nigerian families are facing frustration, facing sadness. Some of them are having sleepless nights because their children are stranded because of failure to pay school. They started it when the currency. So I think there is something to be done. The subsidy was good, very good. Nothing wrong with it. But I think really that the promise is to remove subsidy. And we cannot look at it, see how we can actually phase out approval, make sure that it doesn't create this type of, because the situation I'm seeing today, I don't see it. If things are to float the country is going to have difficulties. So I strongly suggest one, that this subsidy thing, it is good. We all agree. But a thing that had been there for many years, even for 2 years, I mean, nobody will tell you. Now, other disturbing this currency, it is very difficult because we're moving to dollar is already in the old currency. I mean, on the
Chief Iwuanya,
about
please give me a
1,200
moment.
naira to a dollar.
Yeah, Chief, give me one moment. I'll come back to you in a moment. Our engineers are working on the quality of the audio coming from Owerri. But let's hear what Professor Ademola Abbas has to say in assessing what President Bola Tinubu said today. What comes out to you out of that speech?
Well, thank you very much, Sheung, for having me, and happy Independence anniversary to you. Look, it is true that Nigerians probably expected a far more detailed speech than we got from the president. But let's look at it from this angle, and I'm happy that previous speakers, I think Chief Iwuanya especially, has alluded to the fact that the problems of Nigeria today that we are facing today were not created by this particular administration. It's not something that, it's not a problem that can be fixed overnight. And I don't suppose that an independent address by the president will be the appropriate platform for the president to go into details of the implementational schedules or plans of whatever policies the government is rolling out. I look at this speech as a kind of policy directive, and I link the president's speech back to what he said on June 12th during the Independence, the June 12th celebration, Democracy Day. If you remember, the president called on Nigerians at that point in time to make more sacrifices. And in saying that, the president laid some certain conditions. He entered into some conditions, some contracts, so be it, with Nigerians that if you want to sacrifice more for us to be able to take this reform, this action we want to take, we will do A, B, C. So when I look into this speech, I try to match the things that the president indicated that his government has been able to accomplish or to set about in a very short time against the contract the administration entered into with Nigerians on June 12 when he gave that speech. And as I said, you can actually pinpoint a couple of things. Number one is the question of need to respond to workers suffering. Nigerians workers are suffering. Now, whether the increment of what the president called the low threshold salary earners of 25K extra will assuage this remains to be seen. Because at the end of the day, the details is going to be the implementation. I mean, I did a bit of mathematics this afternoon. I'm not great good at that. I say, if somebody, let's say a cleaner in a federal establishment, is sending 20,000 naira, and then you want to increase his or salary by 25,000 naira, and let's say the person is a level 4, and then say 35,000 naira. If you are targeting the low threshold that Mr. President says, it means the cleaner will start earning within those 6 months 45,000 naira. That is 25 plus, maybe 50,000, 25 plus 25. Then what happens to the person who is already 2 steps ahead of that cleaner? Does he benefit from that? That's the big question. That's why I'm saying that there will be a lot of details to come in the implementation. I think it's a reasonable gesture. At least the government is trying to do something about the pain of the workers. We can debate from here till eternity whether that is going to assuage it or not. That because I went into the question of security. Look, and I agree entirely with what Dr. Bugadi said. Maybe we will have seen more in terms of details. But however, as I said earlier, I don't think an independent speech. Look, we used to presidents spending 1, 2, 3, 4 hours. There are famous ones from Latin America and some other places. You can spend 4 or 5 hours giving a national speech. I think at this point in time, Nigerians are more interested not in you saying necessarily new things in your speeches, but doing things in a new, in a different manner. In other words, you can say things that people have been saying before, but let's see how you do things differently. Mr. President could have spent, say, 20 minutes talking about security alone. He will talk about sharing intelligence, we are going to do this, we are going to innovate and this and that. He will still be saying the same thing everybody is saying. Everybody has been saying. What we want to see is what will this government do differently in terms of security. And I think we cannot be expecting that people jump at us in an independence speech, a platform. I think that will come at the end. But I think, Shane, when you are capturing what the president said, you probably, maybe, unless I didn't hear you, you probably didn't mention the fact that he also did mention that they are expanding the cash transfer bracket. They are extending to another 15 million, what vulnerable households. If that were to play, that would be a significant also impact on the pockets of the people. The Nigerian problems that we are facing through is multi-headed, is hydra-headed. We cannot, look, Nigerians, we are impatient, and very rightly so. Nigerians are very impatient because we have trusted our governments year in, year out, and we don't seem to have come up better. So I can understand my impatience as a people. But still, we have to understand that the problems we face today cannot be sorted overnight, cannot be solved overnight, cannot be dealt with appropriately in a single speech. Rather, let us begin to look into that speech, and that's what I did, to look into what can I tease out. The President spoke about security. He spoke about what he would do to assuage transportational problem in the country. He talked about increment, what they call temporary increment in wages, in a way that will not affect inflation. Now, one of the questions I thought we were going to do.
Yeah, so I'd like to know, a lot of the times, the speech of a leader does not resolve or evaporate the problems of the people. But a lot of the times, a leader is expected to inspire confidence in the people. Does that speech inspire any kind of confidence based on the realities on the ground?
Well, Shehu, to be honest with you, the answer is yes and no. We can look at it as a glass and say whether it is half full or half empty. I look at that speech, as I said, I am benchmarking that speech against the contract this government entered into with Nigeria when the president gave that speech on June 12th. I could take 2-3 things that match critically what he said on June 12th and say, look, when I look at those, maybe the president is not really a talker in that sense. I served in the government. I served a governor who is not really a talker. I'm talking about Mr. Nyambodi. I served in Lagos State. He's not a big talker, but he's a very active governor. He worked very well in Lagos. He worked to some extent in Lagos. He delivered on so many things that he promised within 4 years that we were in office. Somebody is not a great talker. So what I'm saying is that I don't focus too much, on, it's not all of us are storytellers on how much what somebody says to me is what somebody does at the end of the day. So for me, I am looking at what the president said. I'm saying, I can take 1, 2, 3 things that he has mentioned, and I can benchmark those with what he said in June 12, and I can say, well, he seems to be on the right path. Please do more. We need more. But for me to say it doesn't inspire me at all, I think I would be exaggerating in a way. For me to say I am overly, inspired, again, would be an hyperbole. What I would say is that I think he's giving a speech that I think Nigerians should be able to look at and say, well, he is a good.
All right. Let's get to our Lagos studio where Ms. Toyosi Akerele Ogunshiji, an entrepreneur and a social development expert, since joined us from our Lagos studio. Thank you so much for joining us on Happy Independence. Can you give us your own view of President Bola Tinubu's Independence Day speech? Some level of confidence, did you get that from him or not?
Sheon, thank you very much for having me. A happy Independence Day to my seniors in the studio and to fellow Nigerians across the country. I think personally for me as a citizen, this is a very sober time. I'd like to just use this opportunity to honor the memory of our young, sister who did not have to die. A couple of days ago, we lost her to the anyhowness of Nigeria. Greatness Olorun Femi. May her gentle soul rest in peace. And it so happened that the period, it so happened just a few days to Nigeria's Independence Day, and I've spent most of the day, ruminating over the fact that are we truly an independent country? What exactly are the parameters with which we would, define Nigeria as an independent country? And I've seen a lot of young people around the country and even on social media, discussing and analyzing whether, whether there's anything to celebrate for Nigeria at 63. That's a young lady who, by no means, by no making of her own, found herself in very unfortunate circumstances and was rejected by a government hospital in this country. A young lady in her prime. Frankly, we need to become a country that places value on human life. I'll come back to that, but I thought it was important to put this, to put this subject matter of the death, a very avoidable and unfortunate demise of Greatness Olorun Femi. Sean, you asked me about the president's speech. I read it time and time again, and it's funny that you asked me about it because it appeared that I was reading to sort of look for, I was searching for hope, today, just as I sat down and watched across the, social media. And I saw someone wear a T-shirt, with the inscription, Nigeria itself needs to travel abroad. And for me, that was a very powerful and compelling call to action for our country. The president's speech, contained quite some detail. Spoke to tax reforms, spoke to reforms. I think that whether it's inspiring, and for me, I would say he aligned, to the renewed hope that the president did promise during his campaign. Whether I'm overly inspired as an individual, I would like to say that at this point, what I think is crucial for Nigerians is not just an Independence Day speech. And I speak for the over 200 million Nigerians from different parts of the country. The people at the bottom of the pyramid of this country who cannot afford a meal a day, I'm not very sure that they care about an Independence Day speech, frankly. I think we've come to a point as a nation where our citizens, our ordinary people on the streets, really want to see the government deliver concrete action to our people. One of the key, I was sort of looking for a few, key components in the speech that I thought that would have would have resonated with Nigeria's successor generation, young people, like me, young professionals, youth, students in school. I really wanted to see something very critical around education. I think that we need to understand that we've come to the point in the world where the wealth of nations is calibrated in terms of the quality of our human capital. And we're now seeing, that we're measuring the global competitiveness of countries as directly proportional to the quality of their human capital. So first off, when we speak about insecurity, it's going to be difficult to eliminate insecurity without fixing those basic social determinants of, human endeavor, of human survival in our country. People are just very poor. We're extremely poor in the midst of a lot. And we continue to define the success of and growth of our country in terms of GDP, in terms of double-digit percentages. These things don't matter to the woman in the market who's not sold anything today because the country is very hard, as the ordinary people would say. It doesn't matter to the workers who, find themselves in very unfortunate circumstances. It doesn't matter to the woman who's just lost a husband somewhere in the backwaters of the northeast of the country because of insecurity. So we need to first fix poverty. When we fix poverty, we need to fix education. We need a complete revamp of our education system from the primary to the tertiary level. Curriculum that match industry expectations such that young people are able to study and then they have assurances of jobs. Because we can simply not face today's challenges with yesterday's knowledge. I didn't quite see. I really was expectant, to see a lot on education in that speech. I was also looking for, I think that perhaps it was a missed opportunity to have not spoken a lot and dwelled a lot on youth development, youth empowerment. And I speak about it in concrete terms now, not in terms of handouts, not in terms of, the tokenism that has greeted or have epitomized the inclusion of young people in policymaking or active participation in the governance process, or even giving young people room to excel, or creating opportunities and the enabling environment for the ideas of young people to take flight. The president's speech spoke, a little bit about, empowering, jobs, creating jobs, youth employment. But youth employment, without tackling the scourge of youth and unemployability, is a major problem. If you look simply at Nigeria's social media today, you would see that our young people are grappling with basic comprehension. And it's a function of how people are just not well taught, from primary level to secondary to university levels of education. You'd see that, teachers in this country are poorly paid. In countries like Finland, you would see how we're laying priority on education. And I really wanted to see that very strong connection between education and human capital development in that speech, which I thought was significantly and conspicuously absent. I also really was looking to seeing things around, I really wanted to see more, expansion on that conditional cash transfer. Because frankly, Lee Kuan Yew did not build Singapore from third world to first by simply, giving our people handouts. We really, I understand by virtue of where I sit and the quality of work I've done in the country, I understand this distribution of money and all of that. But frankly, that is not going to elevate our people out of poverty. We need to create an environment where enterprise, where small business owners can thrive, where we don't overtax them. Where the people that are supposed to be paying tax in this country are evading tax, and they're friends of people in power. Whereas the common business owners on the streets are the ones who are being bedeviled with all manners of multiple taxation across states and federal levels of government. So we need palliative systems, economic palliatives that allow, the way young people say, let the common people breathe. Let the ordinary Nigerians breathe. I thought that, under reforms, the president, could have. But by and large, I think that I really like the speech. I like the speech because for the first time, as a citizen of this country, I felt some emotional connection, at least in a long time, since President Jonathan. I saw a president's speech that called Nigerian citizens his brothers and sisters, and that he welcomes criticism, he welcomes the ideas of the civil society. And I would like to see the president match that with action. Because in a democracy, you expect dissenting voices to thrive. That is how we're going to jointly and collectively move our nation forward. But I therefore hope that the speech will not just be, black print to be able to, keep it within the archives of history, but a document that the president returns to on a constant and consistent basis to revisit what has to be done, and then benchmark the performance of his foot soldiers and his appointees and himself. All right, and benchmark it with the promises that were made to the Nigerians during campaign and even in today's independence speech. But I think that it's a break away from the past. We're going somewhere. This is the very first Independence Day since this new administration came into power. Nigerians are definitely hopeful for a lot. The economic challenges in the country have brought such debilitating circumstances upon our people, and the president needs to know that there is no time. There is very urgent need to, it's not going to be a walk in the park. There's work to be done for this new administration. And the people are ready to hold the government accountable. Nigerians are angry. But, while this new government is still very new, and they're not the ones that created the problems of the past. The argument of the ordinary people would be that a lot of the people in the new government are also part of the, the establishment. And so Nigerians are hopeful. Nigerians are very eager to see change, to see the renewed hope that was promised. And talk doesn't cook rice. So a speech is not enough, to assure the ordinary. You and I, as educated people, can understand the content of the independence speech. But, the ordinary man on the street really just wants to see his life change, have his children go to school, have his family able to eat, and he doesn't want to steal. Nigerians are hardworking people. If you give us the right opportunities and you put us in the right circumstances and you do not make us feel like refugees and, and refugees and second-class citizens in our own country, then, we're going to be having a conversation.
Just for a moment, I think that the views that are being shared on the president's speech today, but I'd like us to move into the realm of our focus on China's television for this Independence Day. And our focus, we've themed it and we've tagged it, Empowering Tomorrow, a new vision for Nigeria at 63. That is very pregnant. Yeah. That theme is very pregnant. Correct. Let me bring back Dr. Usman Bugaje. Now, earlier on, I was analyzing and talking about the vision, the argument of our forefathers who moved the motion in Parliament and what they wanted to see Nigeria look like, and perhaps their own proposition for independence of this nation. Dr. Usman Bugaje, if you can give us an understanding of what you make of, and perhaps let's bring back that graphic on the screen so that our viewers can get an understanding what exactly was on the minds of those proponents of Nigerian independence. What were they thinking? Self-determination, end of colonialism, economic control, cultural identity, political freedom, national unity, international standing, educational opportunities. These were part of the bill, and these were some of those things that make up the coinage or the couching of the motion that was moved before we got independence to convince the colonialists that we needed our independence. But looking back 63 years later, Dr. Bugaje, where do you think we are?
Now, I think, Sean, this is the most important point that we should be discussing. And if you recall, while you were talking about it, and while Professor Abbas was talking, two things came out very clearly. The theme that you have put out there is the theme that we should be addressing. We want to first have an appreciation of the future. Our political leadership who are leading us do not appear to me to have an appreciation of the future. One. Two, there is a kind of credibility deficit, created by the fact that regime after regime have made promises that they have not fulfilled. So there is a huge trust gap. And if we want to fix this country, these are the kind of issues, because they are fundamental. You don't talk about giving 25,000 to God knows who. Fair enough. You want to alleviate the suffering. Workers are not the only citizens. In fact, they are a small minority of citizens. What are you going to do with the others? So we need to go back to the first principles. We need to go back to the fundamentals. And let me make two things here before I come back to the real point I want to make. First, as I keep saying, today, you said it, Nigeria is well over 200 million. In the next 7 years, by United Nations projections, Nigeria is expected by 2030 to hit the 300 million population. Another 20 years down the line, we are expected to be well over 400 million, and that will make us the third largest country after India and China. So what preparation are we doing for this large number of people that are coming? How do we feed them? How do we educate them? How do we find jobs for them? If we don't plan this today, we are basically running into a crisis that we can see very clearly. Our political leaders are not interested in these issues. They are not discussing them. Some of them do not have the proclivity to even think about some of these issues, because a lot of them are poorly educated. Some of them have character deficits that does not qualify them to occupy the post they are occupying. But we have a political culture that does not prioritize competence. It does not prioritize knowledge. It does not prioritize even character. And all manners of people are put in positions, and all they do is they destroy those institutions. And this is why institutions are decaying. And this is why in the last 25 years that we've been running this democracy, poverty has only doubled. In fact, by some statistics, there's more than doubled. At one time, we were being called the poverty capital of the world. We have the largest number of out-of-school children. We have an economy that's literally crumbling. We have so many problems. Let's look at the fundamental faults. The foundation of our politics is faulty. If we can't fix that, if we can't address that, if we cannot use the independence period to reflect on that and to change our trajectory, I really cannot find any meaning even in discussing, independence. So let me make my strong point. I think there are three things we have to agree to revisit. First, this country is divided.
Apologies, Dr. Bugaje. Dr. Bugaje, apologies. Just give me a moment. Those three things, I would like you to touch on them when we come back from a break. We are due for a break, but we go on a short break, and when we come back, our conversation with Dr. Usman Bugaje will continue. But I do know, Dr. Bugaje, that you are very much around, you are very much aware, you were in fact very conscious when Nigeria got independence. But I just want a sentence from you. Are you as excited today as you were on the 1st of October 1960?
I'm not.
Okay, hold the thought. When we come back, you will build more on that and give us those 3 points that you raised when we come back from this break. Stay with us, everyone. My panelists are still with us on the program. Elder statesmen and vibrant women who are discussing Nigeria's independence and at Channels Television. We're focusing on empowering tomorrow. Do we have a future that we can look forward to as a people? We're building a new vision for Nigeria. At 63, are we lagging or we are just barely just dragging our feet as a people? We'll be discussing this when we come back. Stay with us, everyone.
In on the action with Betano, your exciting destination for thrilling sports betting. Enjoy an award-winning experience with amazing betting options, cash out, and missions, as well as other features. Join now and get a welcome bonus of up to 100,000 Naira. Betano.ng. The game starts now.
The Bua Cement Win with the King promo has been ongoing since August 10th. Lots and lots of gifts have been won. 5 tricycles, 14 LED television sets, 19 electric power generators, 11 Android phones, thousands of recharge cards, 756 rechargeable lamps have been won. In addition, 6 lucky people have found raffle tickets that will enable them win one of the 4 JAC executive salon cars or a consolation prize of 1 million Naira inside Bua Cement bags. 14 more to be found. The promo is still on till 31st of October 2023. Buy a bag of Bua Cement, find the scratch card inside, scratch to reveal your prize, then call the phone number written in the back of the scratch card for instructions on how to redeem your prize. For details, call these numbers. Bua Cement, the king of strength.
My name is Architect Adeyemi Makinde, Project Director, Adron Homes and Properties Limited. I'd like to introduce to you our latest housing product, the Oremi series. This product is designed with the concept of encouraging communal living amongst residents living within the same environment. We have the 2-bedroom bungalow units called Oremi, 3-bedroom bungalow unit called Oremi Atata, and we have 3-bedroom duplex units called Oremi Gangan. Join us and key into the Oremi series today.
The Oremi series will boast of the following: maximum security with CCTV, swimming pool, playground, recreational area, gym, solar street lights, adequate parking space, excellent infrastructure, well laid out roads and drainage system, plus many more. Adron Homes.
Building cities, communities and homes.
In today's world, our lifestyle, both at work and at play, depends on connectivity. Our connectivity depends on the devices that make it possible, and these devices depend on electric power. When power fails, our life shrinks, our work drops, and our joy dips. JRB Solar Energy Systems are here to ensure that we enjoy uninterruptible power, uninterruptible joy. Whether you're running a business, an institution, or just a home you return daily to rest, JRB has got you covered. No project is too big for our super digital inverters, long-lasting batteries, and efficient solar panels. Go. Dream on. Change your world. JRB solar inverters, batteries, solar panels, solar streetlights, and more. Telephone 0906 752 1111. Email sales@jrbsolar.com. With JRB, the sun's gonna shine on everything you do.
Get in on the action with Betano, your exciting destination for thrilling sports betting. Enjoy an award-winning experience with amazing betting options, cash out, and missions, as well as other features. Join now and get a welcome bonus of up to 100,000 Naira. Betano.ng. The game starts now.
everyone. We're sitting in the mood of the 63rd independence anniversary of Nigeria, but we are not dancing as much as we should because as a people, we need to look back and see where we are supposed to be based on the dreams of our forefathers that forged or that came about the concept of independence. 63 years later, where are we as a people? We'll be looking and dissecting some of the issues that have cropped up. We are not, as a television station, looking at the problems. We're looking forward to saying, how can we empower tomorrow, the future of this country, and building a new vision for Nigeria as 63? And I've been discussing this with very erudite scholars and very eminent Nigerians on this program tonight. Chief Emmanuel Onyawu is the President General of the Ohanaeze Ndigbo Worldwide, who's been speaking with us from Owerri, the capital of Imo State, and also Dr. Usman Bugaje, an elder statesman as well, and an erudite scholar and a former federal lawmaker. Thank you so much, Dr. Bugaje. And Professor Ademola Abbas is being with us virtually. He's a professor of law, has been speaking with us from Abeokuta. And one of Nigeria's vibrant young minds is Toyosi Akerele Ogunshije, who is one of those who will be talking more about the hopes and aspirations of the young person in Nigeria. She's seated right there in our Lagos studio. Thank you so much, Toyosi, for your time tonight. Let's get back to the conversation. I asked you, Dr. Usman Bugaje, if you were happy with what is going on in Nigeria today, and I did say, I asked you, well, you was happy because I know you were very much around at independence on the 4th of October, 1960. Some of us are not, we are not privileged to see at that time. But then, what makes you unhappy? And then you go to the 3 points that you were about to raise.
Yes. I think what we have seen the last 25 years in particular is a tragedy, because we have moved away from the military, which is dictatorial, and we have moved into a democracy where ideas should flow. But there are no ideas, and we're not making any progress. If anything, this country is going down the drain. So the kind of conversation that I think we should be holding now within political circles, within the intellectual circles, I think for me are 3 areas. One, we need to craft a national consensus. No country has made any progress without a national consensus. Our elite are split and they are fighting each other. And they are busy every day abusing each other. The Southeast is abusing the Southwest is abusing the Northwest is abusing the South. I mean, what kind of country is this? Where is the leadership? Leadership is not just about sitting on the table and just signing budgets and contracts. No, you're supposed to come out and craft and unite your people and create a direction. Rwanda, after this terrible genocide, was able to make this progress because there was a consensus that was built by Kagame. South Korea did not, start making the kind of achievements in terms of, getting to the frontiers of development, except after they have had a national consensus. The same with China. The point is that we have got to, that does not mean that there would be no dissent. There will be dissents, there will be opinions. But there must be an elite consensus as to where we want our country to be in the next 25 years. And then everybody should now be working towards that. That consensus is missing. Without that consensus, we'll continue to move in different directions and tearing the country apart like we have done in the last 25 years or more. The second point is that we have got to change our political culture. Our political culture at the moment is very pedestrian and is being led by people with character deficits. And because of that, I can't see how we can build a country, because you don't build a country out of just money flowing from oil or from anything. No, you build countries or nations through values. What are our core values? When we have a number of our people, on drugs, how do you really forge that? So we need to bring in a culture of meritocracy. We need to prioritize knowledge. We need to, and let me give you an idea. If we do not prioritize knowledge, we can't make any progress. Look at agriculture, for example. The potentials in Nigeria are enormous. But just take tomatoes, for example. What we grow, in Nigeria is not, I mean, per hectare. At the moment, our yield is about 5 to 6 metric tons per hectare. The African average is about 20 metric tons per hectare. Cuba, a small country in the Caribbean, is already doing 120 metric tons per hectare. Why? Because they have employed knowledge. They prioritize knowledge. Yeah, I mean, we are not producing, 1% of what we could produce in terms of agriculture. And people are dying because they can't find food to eat. So you have got to change the political culture by bringing in meritocracy, by bringing prioritization of knowledge, and by prioritizing character. That's very important. The third point, you have talked about empowering tomorrow. How do we empower tomorrow? We are not investing in our youth. Anybody who wants to get a better tomorrow or a better future must invest in it. Good futures don't just turn out just like that. No, people invest in them. People work hard for them. People envision them, and they assemble the necessary ingredients to produce the kind of future they want or they want to see. And therefore, we have got to give our youth the opportunity. Now look at our educational system. When ASU was asking for a few billions, I mean, some people were stealing 100 billion, 200 billion. Now we understand that some of the money, stolen in the previous regime is in the margins of in the region of trillions. We talked about some 8 trillions. We have been reading from your colleagues, other journalists in the newspaper. What kind of country is that? I mean, you can't fix your university system. You can't, even teach skills. The lady talked about employability of young people. How can we employ these young people? They have no skills. We need to invest in our youth by producing education. I mean, by giving them good education, giving them good health care, and by providing the opportunities.
Dr. Bugache, quickly, if I may ask you pointedly, do you see Bola Tinubu as having a sincerity of purpose to be able to bring Nigeria together to achieve empowering the Nigerian future? There are those who have heard who said to me that the man's vision or dream is to become the Lee Kuan Yew of Nigeria. Do you see him having what it takes to be that?
I have heard, it's a very straightforward answer. I've had the opportunity to work with Bola Tinubu. If you remember, I was the National Secretary of ACN for a whole term of nearly 4 years. And I've had the opportunity to work closely with him. And what I knew of him was that he's a man of ideas. He's the man who would want to invest into the future. But what I see for him today is encircled by people with character deficits, people who have no idea, people who have destroyed this country. I can't understand how he can be useful to us with the kind of team he's keeping. I don't know how that has happened. And therefore, I still grant him the hope. I mean, the fact that he can recover and find his bearings. But at the moment, I'm afraid I have no hope from what I have seen so far. If he changes, that will be good for this country.
Let me fly quickly to Owerri with Chief Emmanuel Iwuanyanwu. Give us an understanding, and I'll come straight with what we have on our hands as a people. These issues of ethnic division in our country. We can't run away from the fact that it's one of the clutches holding us our progress back. You as a leader of thought and a leader, a socio-political leader within the Nigerian space, give us an understanding of how we can move forward. How can we empower tomorrow with the sort of problem, which is a major one, isn't it, of this ethnic division that we have on our hands?
Sheikh, let me tell you frankly, the problem we have in our hands is very, very serious. It's very serious, and as I said through my earlier statement before the problem of engineering problem on the line, every effort must be made to persuade the labor union not to go on strike. And you can only do it by giving them proper assurance. Because, Matthew, the president has problem. Because an average Nigerian worker today is very sad. And the president is in difficulty. So his speech has not given enough. And I believe that people should give advice, offer advice on what can be done. Because my worry is if that strike goes on, many things are going to go bad because many people in this country are very, very sad. Many people are sad, and if there is that strike, I don't know where it will lead to. So I'm appealing to the president to do more to assure the labor union, to extend the deadline. Let them give, even if it's a week or two, to enable the president to get better opportunity to give them what he's planning to do. This question of removing subsidy, I'm talking of repairing refinery in December, and the price of fuel is going up, doesn't make any sense. You talk about foreign exchange, the thing is changing every moment. I think these things can be solved. I don't see how a country will fold its hands and its currency will continue to decline the way Naira is declining. So I think something must be done in that. But having said that, you talk about the ethnic problem. Ethnic problem in Nigeria is very serious. It's very serious. And then I believe that, you see, speaking from my own perspective as Igbos have been faithful to Nigeria since 1914, when Nigeria was amalgamated. Right from independence, we were faithful. Of course, there was the coup in 1966, which was brandished Igbo coup. It's not Igbos. It's clear to Nigerians Igbos didn't carry out the coup. And people have not even emphasized one fact, that coup was a failure. That coup by Nzogo and his group failed. And why did he fail? Because an Igbo man, Agui Ironsi, took up arms and fought them and stopped them. And from every information we had then, by then I was in university, the political people then voluntarily gave power to Ironsi. It's not that Ironsi was part of the coup. Ironsi was just voluntarily given power on temporary basis by the politicians. And of course, you know what happened to Ironsi about 6 months after. Ironsi was slaughtered in cold blood. And even Fakui, his soul was killed with him. And of course, that started the whole problem we have today. And of course, people go about when they talk of secession, they say, when they talk about Southeast or Igbos, they talk about secession. Igbos have never talked about secession from Nigeria. Igbos have spread and they stay everywhere. Even during that crisis, when people went to Aburi in Ghana, Ojukwu went there to negotiate a restructuring. And when Ojukwu went to Aburi, he came back agreeing on a restructuring with Gowon. Problem started when Gowon came back, and that agreement was refused by Nigeria. And then they wanted the Eastern Nigeria to come back without any consideration after losing so many people. And of course, Ojukwu was never part of it. That's how the war started. So the war was actually forced on Eastern Nigeria by Nigerians. So, but we have, by the grace of God, through the sagacity of leaders like Gowon, the war ended, no victor, no vanquished. We have since come back to Nigeria, and we are determined to do our best in Nigeria. We have done our best in every field. A few young people, some of them who are frustrated because of inequalities, because there is obvious discrimination, there is obvious marginalization against the Igbos. There is no doubt about it. The last government under Buhari, it was very clear. Now with Tinubu, he started off when he appointed service chiefs. At least he appointed somebody from our place as service chief. So there is time. The only recipe for ethnic harmony is equity, justice, and fairness. And a country like Nigeria, with so many ethnic nationalities, Nigeria comprises so many nationalities.
Chief Nwayo, how do we achieve that justice, fairness, and equity that you are talking about? And a few of us who are within my age bracket are worried by the sheer lack of knowledge of history of our young people, especially our brothers and sisters from the southeastern region, but those who are asking for division, those who are asking for war, those who are asking for attrition in this country, perhaps who do not understand the outcome of the Civil War, how much we lost as a people and how much we are held back from progressing. And that's why I asked you that question. For us to move forward as a people and as a leader in that region, what must we do now, practically speaking?
I can tell you what we must do now. The problem is that, you see, these things were started by young people. But Nigerian government made them heroes. You know, most of these people, when they come out and they are treated a certain way like Nnamdi Kanu, he was made a hero. How do we solve the problem? Frankly speaking, Nnamdi Kanu, most of these people who took arms, they say the reason for Nnamdi Kanu. Nnamdi Kanu is not a threat. It's not any threat. He cannot even force Igbos to secede. That is why everybody in Igbo land, everybody who has any love for Nigeria, has pleaded that Nnamdi Kanu should be released. If Nnamdi Kanu is released, then anybody still fighting will be known to be a criminal. Because many people who are criminals have now taken up arms under cover that Nnamdi Kanu is not released. I mean, they have taken cover. For whatever reason, whether they are wrong or right, we think if Nnamdi Kanu, all of us have agreed, we will appeal to Tinubu to release Nnamdi Kanu. Then after that, I will assure you, Shegun, people, anybody who wants to say, will go through the normal process. In our constitution, there is a process. And some of us who love Nigeria want that everybody who loves this country must be very careful to avoid any break. If any part of this country breaks, it will result into total destruction of Nigeria. Over 12 countries will emerge. So the best thing is for everything to be done to keep Nigeria. Many Nigerians today are asking for restructuring of Nigeria. That has been many parts of Nigeria today, the south, the southwest, the southeast, and even part of northern Nigeria is asking for restructuring. We think this restructuring needs to be done. Tinubu's government should take it very serious. If Nigeria is restructuring, first of all, that will get the federal government out of full responsibility for many things. Because the problem today is everything is blamed on federal government. Everything on federal government. But once there is a restructuring, it will be different. For example, if there is a state police, this type of problem that starts from state or from local government, the state police, the governor there will have enough equipment, will have enough resources from the budget to be able to fight it. But this time, every security responsibility is on the federal government. And the federal government has failed. Federal government has failed so far because all over the country, there is security problem. And you can't blame it on the state governments because state governments have no police, they don't have any arms. Federal government is in charge of all this. If we restructure the country and have a state police, then if incidents come in the state, they start fighting. The adjacent states can come together. I believe it's going to be very, very useful. So
there is one thing that worries me, part of my earlier question, and I like maybe in just about 30 or 40 seconds, people who lack knowledge of their history, there is a danger looming for the future. That is what history has taught us, that we need to have a strong understanding of history. And I'm not sure that those who are in school, I did history when I was in secondary school, for those who are in school today, are not even offering history. They don't even know what independence, what civil war, what whatever the Nigeria history is all about. They may not be able to appreciate the future of this country. They may not even be able to believe in the Nigerian dream. You, as a leader of the Igbo people who has a voice, do you think, and how relevant do you think teaching the younger Igbo people the history of this country is important in pursuing the dream of Nigeria? Quickly, if you can tell us, and how do you hope to go about it? Because that region is embattled on all sides, isn't it?
It's very important. It's very important. That is a big mistake we made to remove history. History is a very important discipline for every human being in every place. For example, in Southeast, under my leadership, we have decided that our people must know our history. They must know everything about us. For example, yesterday, in a very memorable ceremony at Enugu, we honored all our heroes. So our young people today will now know that Southeast Igbo land was built by some heroes. People like Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe and many other heroes of Igbo land were honored yesterday. And I want to ensure that they all learn history. But there is one major problem I want to tell you. There is also the problem Igbos are suffering today in Nigeria is because of lack of history. Most of the younger northern Nigerian people today, younger ones, don't understand about how Ahmadu Bello and Tafawa Balewa was killed. Most of them have a belief that Igbos conspired, and Igbos hit the north and killed, Igbo leaders conspired and killed Tafawa Balewa, Sadwana, and all the leaders. That is the northerners who know the fact. Most of them are probably dead. The younger ones are there, and people have not been explained to them that there was a coup d'etat by a military. This military, they don't normally take permission from any civilian before they carry out a coup. They didn't tell Igbo leaders. Igbo leaders didn't know about it. And Igbos suffered terrible disaster. Many Igbos were killed. And not only that, that was what caused this civil war. Even you don't see an Igbo man who was given a position, people think he carried out the coup. Heroes was not part of the coup. Heroes was there, but he was murdered. So these are some of the things that we have to correct. I intend, as the leader of Igbos, to bring this, look for a commission of truth, where this matter must be brought out, and Nigerians will not be told, so that the young people today will know that Igbos never at any time conspired the military to take over power and kill Northerners, because we have had good relationship with Northern Nigeria all through.
All right.
Even it is it's clear that even during that war, all the properties Igbos had in the north were handed over to the Igbos after the war. Even the rents collected, the Northerners collected the rent and handed it over to them. So we don't have any problem. But the stories the younger ones have is the wrong profiling of some people. And this is where history is important.
All right, Chief, just give me a moment. Let me bring back Professor Ademola Abbas, a professor of law. But Prof, let me show you this. This is present-day Nigeria and what the independence looked like. And this dynamics has shown how our nation has moved. But in all of these, I want you to, all Nigerians to understand where we got it wrong and perhaps what we need to do quickly to fix things. If you look at it, the status of our nation today, we gained independence from the British on 1st of October. But as a people now, we are a sovereign nation, a powerful force in the continent. But if you look at economically speaking, we were largely agrarian, population-wise, 45 million people, now 200 million. We are the most populous nation on the African continent. In fact, where you will find the most black people coming together in the world. Now, economy-wise, we are mainly agrarian at independence, exporting agricultural produce, Oluwa Glass Company. You have the rice pyramid, a lot of development economy-wise, but this is where we are today. Oil-based economy, major oil exporter. Unfortunately, a country that cannot even refine its own oil, that it has abundance under the ground, sadly so. Now, if you look at other aspects of our lives as a people, politically speaking, we were operating a parliamentary system of government, but this is what we operate, the presidential system with regular elections since 1999. That's where we are. But then you look at it, there are those who will say this federal or presidential system is very, very expensive, and we may not even be able to afford it compared to America that we like to mirror. Or Prof, give me an understanding in that journey, in 63 years, that picture, that snapshot that I've just shown our viewers tonight, where we got it wrong, and immediately, if we need to fix things, where do we start from in empowering tomorrow?
Well, thank you very much, Shion. That's a very loaded question. If anybody wants to talk about where we got it wrong, I mean, it's very fair to say we got it wrong from the very start in 1960. I mean, I wasn't around in 1960 when independence was obtained. Nor actually was I around most part of the Nigerian Civil War.
But Prof, your beard is otherwise. Your beard says that you've been around even before the independence.
Well, blame it on other times. Yes, you know, and as Chief, you've spoken about ethnic problem in Nigeria, and Chief Wanya has gone into a bit of history. But you see the danger in telling the story of Nigeria, we got it wrong as an example, is that it depends on who is telling the history as an example. And I'm happy with what Dr. Bugaji said when he identified the three things he talked about. Incidentally, I had those three things in my mind going differently, apart from national consensus he talked about. Number one is the lack of a well-articulated and cleverly cultured political culture in Nigeria. When we got independence was literally thrust upon us in a way, I didn't say with our fathers and mothers didn't fight for it, in a way that did not immediately impress upon us as a nation that we needed to take some deliberate steps, take some deliberate measures to begin to lay down foundation of proper political culture in Nigeria. We never really had that. You know, our independence was obtained and, you know, a lot of fighting started, you know, to be parliamentary and so on as well, and that. Then in the middle of that, you had a bedlam of January 15 coup in 1966, which came with a panoply of its own problems. And I'm saying I don't want to go, I wasn't there when the coup started, when the coup happened. But when you read history as an example, part of the problem we're talking about is lack of education, lack of knowledge. You know, so some part of Nigeria today, as Dr. Chief Moyawa said, the coup was directed against a part. So another part, it wasn't like that. There was a counter coup and so many things. But when you take a step back, that's the question. I used to tell some of my friends, even I have a lot of friends from the Southeast, and whenever we talk, I said, look, part of what I see as some of the problem of this Nigerian Civil War, there are two. Number one, we never actually sat down after that war and interrogate ourselves. We never actually tried to go back into that war and, you know, have a conversation about the way the war was prosecuted, whether it was prosecuted within what it should be done, and whether we should take decisive steps to actually, you know, bring the whole part of the country together. So rumors, imaginations, everything came to play and became entrenched in the absence of serious, deliberate political culture and education for the country. For instance, I always remind people that when you talk about, you know, this war was Igbo's war against Hausa, against Yoruba, you've forgotten that you had, you know, these five majors, they come from almost across the country, even though all the from a particular. Oladimega was there, Nzebu was there, Fejuana was there. So many of them were university, they were classmates. In the same war, don't forget, Wole Soyinka was imprisoned during that war for about 22 months. Why? Because he went to meet with Chief Emeka Onugbu to try to find a way that he could resolve the crisis without going into full war. He came back and he was kicked by Gowon, and Gowon's government. He was incarcerated. It was almost 22 years in solitary confinement. Victor Banjo was a colonel. He fought on behalf of the Biafrans. So what we are saying is that there's a lot of mix in the grill. So history depends on who is telling you. But the truth is, to move this country forward, we need to find different channels. For me, number one is that we have failed utterly to invest seriously in education in Nigeria. Our education has become completely poor. The kind of education even people like me still got in the university in the late 80s or early 90s, you don't have it anymore nowadays. Political culture. Do we have any institution that is actually training our politicians in the moral values, in the morals and the values of the society? What values do our politicians actually propagate when they get to power? And I agree entirely with the fact that sometimes we put our wrongest foot forward. That is the fact. We have completely destroyed any idea of meritocracy in government, almost completely. Today, without blinking an eye, if you want to recruit 10 people in a particular political post in Nigeria, it might shock some of us that as many as 7 or 8 might just come from the back door without appropriate qualification because he or she knows A, B, C, D. You cannot run, you cannot put short people in position of authority and then expect something to get. You can't, as I said, you can't pay peanuts and not get a monkey at the end of the day. It doesn't work like that. Investment in youth. Our youth don't know our history. And so whatever the youth are dealing with today is something that the folklore has handed to them. I mean, look, youth have to take responsibility for themselves. I used to joke some of my more youthful friends. I'm still a youth, by the way, Seun, before you say anything. I'm a Nigerian youth. I joke with a lot of some of my more youthful friends that you are lucky. In our generations, people will go to library and see it. There may be just one copy of a book in a library that will serve thousands of people. We will read as if our life depends on them. Today, you have powerful weapons on your hand called iPhone. From the comfort of your room, you can do a lot. You can do doctoral research literally nowadays on your phone. You don't make use of that. So there is a need to go back to the drawing board. This country has floundered, and we need to reclaim this country. But reclaiming it means, number one, we must make sure we put back the culture of meritocracy. That is, for me, is the biggest thing killing this country. It doesn't matter whether, let me give you an example. And you were saying Dr. Payemi was going to join us. I mean, for Dr. Payemi from King's College. I used to be on board of a King's College famous program in London, African Leadership Center, in London. We established that program just about 10 years ago between King's College, University of London, and University of Nairobi in Kenya, funded by Carnegie Foundation in the US. 99% of those who birthed that program at King's College in London, all of us were Nigerians, including Dr. Olonisha, who is the VP international in London in King's College today. 99% of us were all Nigerians. We had that program for the first 3 years during the training program. No single Nigerian qualified for the first 3 years when we did the training, when we did the pilot edition of the program. Why? We couldn't. I was one of the committee members that actually did the recruitment. At that point in time, we felt we needed to promote African women in peace and security because we have been just changed internationally. That was when the program was birthed. But when you got applications from Nigeria, what you'll be reading will be, my father was A, my father was B, my mother was A. I couldn't care less. And you had students from other places, Zimbabwe, Kenya, doing fantastically well. So the first 3 years, no single Nigerian made it to that program. Meanwhile, almost all of us, apart from 1 or 2 people who ran the program for Queen's College, were Nigerians. What happened to that? We lived in this country in the days of even free education when kids from indigent students who couldn't otherwise afford good education were brought to the limelight and became fantastic human beings. So what I'm saying is that we need to invest more in education. We need to invest massively in our youth, but we also need to invest a lot in the political culture, especially of the political class. What kind of morals and values do our politicians ventilate? Do we have institutions to project, norms that we want to abide by in Nigeria?
Professor Abbas, apologies for butting in, but let me ask you quickly. And I asked Dr. Bugaje this question, and I asked him, that those who have heard from them who said that the dream of Bola Tinubu is to be the Lee Kuan Yew of Nigeria, that would be good if it is in the interest of Nigeria, and if that dream comes true. Because, I mean, as a Nigerian, who doesn't want Nigeria to be a great nation? We all want that. But do you think that he has what it takes to be the person that will change the course and the trajectory of this nation's journey to such a destination that we have always dreamed about? That is been the journey to greatness.
Look, Seun, I will answer this question this way. I think in terms of experience, in terms of knowledge, in terms of what we are seeing, in terms of smartness and grasp on issues, I have no fear to say President Bola Tinubu has what it takes to be Lee Kuan Yew of Nigeria. However, this is the however is it I'm going to throw in here. Let us look at the structure of democracy. We have a democratic system today that operates on the basis of 4 years. Politicians in Nigeria spend 1 year campaigning for the coming. When they come in, sometimes it takes them about 6 months or 1 year to actually settle down into that government itself. First year is gone. They start working effectively with very few exceptions on the second year. By the third year, they were thinking of next year election. They start to campaign. Now, Lee Kuan Yew, go to Singapore, go to UAE, go to Saudi Arabia, go to major democracies in the world, and even theocracies that develop fully. You might be shocked to find out that they sometimes are not bound by 4-year term in government. We need to look again into the kind of democracy we are practicing. Democracy is government of the people by the time for the people, yes, Aroloski. However, it doesn't say that democracy must mandatorily be 4 years. It has to be autochthonized. It has to be indigenized. The concept of, I'm saying we need to start looking at it. Is it working for us? We want democracy, yes. We want participatory democracy. We want our people to vote. We want them to be able to decide. But what I'm saying is that from what we have seen in the last 34 years that civilians have governed Nigeria, do we think limiting our democracy to 4 years is actually working for us? It's a big question. Because no matter what President Tinubu wants to be, Lee Kuan Yew of this, that at the end of the day, there is need for time. I'm not saying you should unconstitutionally extend this power. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's high time we began to actually have a different discussion in Nigeria. That do we need to limit this into 4 years, or should we say that, look, United States, we keep forgetting the US does not have it written in the Constitution that it must be 2 terms of 4 years. It's nowhere in the American Constitution. And until 1944, it wasn't actually 2 terms. You could do 3, 4, 5 terms, whatever you like. It became a convention for them to do 2 terms. What I'm saying is that we have to go back to the drawing board and see whether it's working for us. Sometimes you need time. Because my fear sometimes is that 4 years is pretty short in the life of a government. In Nigeria, the way we practice our democracy here.
All right.
So whatever by the time Jack Robinson 4 years are gone, do we want to have a 1 term of 5 years or 1 term of 6 years in which a government can come in and say, you know what, I've got 6 years mandate. I'm going to do it the first 6 months to clear the house, and I'm going to focus for the next 5 or 6 years on my project. After 6 years, you go. I'm thinking that it's high time we began to have serious conversation about the duration that our democracy has bent us to in Nigeria. It doesn't seem, to my mind, to be working effectively for our system.
All right, let me bring back Mr. Akerele Ogunsuchi. Give us an understanding. What are the yearnings of the young people? Is there a future for the young person in Nigeria? If not, how do we then empower the tomorrow of Nigeria? We've been hearing years and years that the future of tomorrow, some of them are even grandparents, but where is that tomorrow? What are your thoughts on what we need to do now?
You see, I grew up hearing, I listened with very rapt attention to all, the very eminent senior Nigerians on the panel, and I had goosebumps listening because these are ordinary Nigerians, private Nigerians who mean well for the country. I only worry about the fact that I worry about whether the people who are supposed to take the concrete action required on these things are watching. If they're watching, are they listening? If they are listening, are they willing? Because, I grew up in this country hearing that Nigerian, as a child in Nigeria, traveling around the country, participating in debates and writing essays on behalf of my schools, that I was a leader of tomorrow. And I now have children that are, going to be almost 10 years old. And I'm still, young people are still being referred as leaders of tomorrow. And we don't see any representation of that leadership. You asked a very good question about whether President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has the potential of becoming a Lee Kuan Yew. And frankly, Sheol, see, to be a Lee Kuan Yew is not, it's not about defining, it's not about, defining oneself as I want to be like this person. It's about leadership that makes very tough decisions. under Lee Kuan Yew, a minister in the cabinet of Lee Kuan Yew as president, you know, dropped a suicide note and killed himself for being corrupt, for taking bribe. And he did that because he was petrified by what the potential punitive measure he was going to face if the president found out that he was, you know, he had done that. We need a country where beyond simply giving people roles of responsibilities, we need a country where we run our government like private institutions. We cannot leave our country in the hands of strong men and women and where we have very weak institutions. There's no way nations grow that way. When Nigeria became an independent country, Rwanda was nowhere near where we were. In fact, the seven Emirates in 1960, the 7 Emirates of the United Arab Emirates were still covered in sand and water. And I recall one of our meetings as a student at the Harvard Kennedy School, where the Minister of Foreign Affairs had told us that in the year that he was born, even as one of the most privileged citizens, it was missionaries from Britain that came to came to cover the cost of their medical, their medical treatment. But today that nation has become the gold standard and the yardstick for what a country, a wholesome nation should be. I grew up in this country watching criminals get chieftaincy titles, watching corrupt people get doctorate degrees. And so when you ask a fundamental question about history, when you Google these people, young people are going to see that it is criminals that are rewarded in our country. The man who designed the Nigerian flag, Pa Akinwumi, lived in Ibadan for many years and died in practical penury. Those are supposed to be the heroes of this country. What did they get in return? The people that work hard for Nigeria don't get much. We celebrate criminals. They are the ones we give national honors and chieftaincy titles. We have a fundamentally faulty leadership recruitment system into our public service. We put the worst people in government, and then they are the ones. How do you want the brightest and the best on the private sector side and the social sector side to go and negotiate with charlatans on the government side? What you're going to have is a recipe for disaster, which is what we have. So there are 4 fundamental, there are 4 key things that make a nation powerful. The first one is our population. The second one is our education. The third is our economy. And the fourth is our security. Nigeria has a great population. You talked about regional divides and crises in the Northeast and all of that. The truth is, for me, people would disagree with me, but I don't think that we're going to go forward as a country if we break up. It's simple. I'm Yoruba from the southwest of Nigeria. I went to school in the north. I had a stepmom who comes from somewhere in Afikpo in Ebonyi State. So I speak a little bit of Igbo, I speak a little bit of Hausa, and I speak very good Yoruba. And I can tell you for free that when I travel up north, given the work that I've done, when I go up north, the things that I see make me know that Northerners are not as troublesome as we paint them to be in the media. But the media is in the south of Nigeria. So young people who have never gone beyond Lagos, Abuja, and a little bit of Port Harcourt and maybe somewhere in the east, believe the stereotype that the Northerners are the ones who are going to break the country, they are troublesome. The stereotypes against the Igbo people about being very, the Easterners the East being a very volatile part of the country, these are not true. The truth is, if you look at the social construct, the political construct of our country, the geographical construct, the political and the geographical construct, the Yoruba people, the Southwest, the South is where you have a lot of people who go to school, get education. You have that around the country, but the education is more prioritized in the South. The East is the commercial nerve center of this country. The commerce and industry, the people who do legitimate work to make money in this country, a lot of them, a chunk of them, the people who power our economy are in the East of this country. Our huge population and the agrarian economy of Nigeria is domiciled in the North. The reason why you have a double-digit inflation rate is because farmers in Taraba and Benue cannot farm because their farmlands have been overrun by all manners of violent attacks. These are fundamental issues that we need to address. When we speak about the economy, you measure economic indices and people don't eat GDP like Professor Akinwumi Adesina said. We need youth investment banks where young people get investment in their ideas. Look at what has happened in Singapore. That's a country that, as at the time I was studying for my master at the Kennedy School, Singapore had a population of 5 million people. That country had 142% mobile penetration rate. You had a country where a lot of the development that they had the best universities in Asia. When Dr. Abbas, Dr. Usman Bugaje, and Chief Nyawayan were growing up, they had milk in school. They had fish in school. We now have schools where our children sit on the floor to study. And you want these children, you want a university that is teaching computer science, a curriculum that is 20 years old. In law, I was taught that nemo dat quod non habet. You cannot give what you don't have. So what you have is, the world is moving. Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI, ChatGPT, was in Nigeria in May this year. And the US government, the US consulate in Nigeria invited a couple of us to sit down with him. The first time Sam decided to engage any country on, coming to collaborate on artificial intelligence and the use of ChatGPT was to come to Nigeria. The world is talking about cloud computing, data science, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things. Nigeria is teaching a computer science curriculum with Fortran, programming languages that are moribund, that are completely dated. We're using computers. There's nothing we're doing to invest and show a sense of promise that we understand where Nigeria needs to go.
Yeah.
And Sheon, the truth is that Patrick Akua, listen, Sheon, Patrick Akua, who started Ashesi University in Ghana, and we don't, look, the examples are abound. When you talk about the UK, you talk about the US, you talk about Singapore, Nigerian leaders will make excuses about Rome was not built in a day. But there's Ghana, there's Rwanda, where President Kagame, where you can register a business in Rwanda in 6 hours. And you can do it if you walk into the office within 2 hours. In Nigeria, when you think about automating anything, we're thinking about in contracts. We think in contracts, we think in self-gratification. We don't think in innovation. We don't think in sustainability.
So let me, apologies, please. Just one moment. Apologies, please. And maybe in 60 seconds, you can give us an understanding. You're speaking with the energy of a young person.
What do you
with
say?
The intelligence of now, because of what you know, because you are a citizen of Nigeria who is conversant of the modern day technology. Now, give me an understanding of what we need to do as a people, because you're looking at empowering tomorrow. Where do we start from? How then can a nation emerge from the rubbles of yesterday or yesteryear's destruction and the plundering of his wealth by their forefathers or those who have corrupted this country without having a unified vision? How do we have a vision as a people? The countries that we have mentioned, they have a unified vision. They have a leader who saw tomorrow and who was ready to go ahead with it. How do we get a unified vision, and how do we empower tomorrow? Just in 60 seconds, seriously.
We've talked about unified visions for so long. We've had SEEDS document, NEED document, 7-point agenda, 15-point agenda, 20-point agenda. These things haven't improved the lives of our people. When you talk about a national vision, what you want is a nation where the citizens are served from the local, state, and the federal government. I worry about the fact that the over-dependence on the federal government of Nigeria is a major problem. Our local government chairmen are extremely irresponsible, several of them. A few centers of excellence, but nothing much, nothing to write home about. The inner city markets and the inner city streets are, supposed to be supervised by local government chairmen. But what you have is a nation of very, very strong people. A nation where a simple tailor offends a customer, you use a DSS official to go and beat them up. Is that what you call a national vision? What is the Nigerian dream you refer to, Sheon? What does that Nigerian dream mean to the parents and the family of greatness, Olorunfemi, who was killed? Because I call it murder, the negligence of someone who signed an oath to be a medical officer, they brought a patient to your hospital. Someone was bleeding and you were requesting for a police report. This is not a country, Sheon. The older generation did not hand over a country to us. And listen, you can keep talking about Nigeria is going to break now. When that's not the solution to our problem. In Cross River State, for example, people speak more than 50 languages in Cross River. In River State, there's no single language that people speak multiple languages. We need to come to a point where one leader in this country is going to say that he's going to be It's not about being a Lee Kuan Yew. He has to be a man of his own and make tough decisions and fire people. The president needs to create a performance management system that appraises the competence, the character, and the performances of the people. We're in very dire straits as at this moment. The country is in extreme poverty.
Seriously,
and I don't know that we're going to be able to go through this if the president does not make extremely tough decisions. When you speak about a national vision, you speak about a country where education becomes a key priority, where our young people are not just caring about ChatGPT and artificial intelligence. It becomes a part of the curriculum. You speak about a nation where teaching as a profession is elevated to becoming a medical doctor and a lawyer, so that the people that you have empowered to instill knowledge and instruction in the children are given the right incentives so that they can go to the classrooms to teach. You talk about a country where, because the truth is that we will not stop building bigger prisons if we don't put food on the tables of our children. During occupying Nigeria, young people did not go to the poor parts of Lagos and Abuja. The truth is that the poor people of this country know the home addresses of the politicians. And when the time comes, right, Nigerians will tell their leaders that if we're not on the table, we know that we're on the menu. And when the time comes, the poor will have nothing to eat, but the rich.
All right, thank you so much. Toyosi Ogunsuji, Akerele Ogunsuji, thank you so much indeed. Dr. Usman Bugaje, I really appreciate your time. Chief Emmanuel Unwayawo and Professor Ademola Abbas, thank you so much, eminent speakers, on this very special edition of the program. Thank you so much indeed for your time. Well, as we celebrate our 63rd independence anniversary, we must look forward to the future with hope and anticipation. The challenges of the past have only served to make us more resilient and determined to build a stronger, better nation. Our youth, with their innovative spirit and determination, are taking the reins of leadership and driving positive change. We must harness their potential and create an environment where every Nigerian can thrive. In closing, let us remember that Nigeria's journey is a testament to the indomitable spirit of its people. As we celebrate 63 years of independence, let us renew our commitment to unity, peace, and progress. Together, we can overcome any challenge and build a Nigeria that we can all be proud of. Happy Independence Day, Nigeria, and thank you for joining us on this special program. As we close this program, let's leave you with this musical piece of the Nigerian National Anthem performed by the 200 City Choir in Lagos, arranged by music director Shalom Matthew and produced by Efe Mark Rock. Many thanks for joining us on the program. Have a wonderful evening, everyone.
and welcome to News Track on Channels Television. I'm Anne Nwawado. Our top stories this hour. And we begin with an announcement by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for a 6-month provisional wage increment for low-grade workers to cushion the impact of fuel subsidy removal. The president, who made this announcement at his nationwide broadcast to mark Nigeria's 63rd Independence Day, also promises to reposition